In this video, we're going to talk about FPV goggles and what it takes to get started in this hobby. This is the fourth video in a playlist, so I've got a link down in the description below where I talk about how to get started picking a radio, stuff like that. So make sure you're subscribed and make sure you have the bell notification on when new videos drop in this series. First up, let's talk about analog. This is how I got started in the hobby. I'll show you guys the setup quick and then I'll talk about why I like it still. So we've got HD02s. These are made by Fat Shark. They're very dirty and they need some TLC because my foam is falling apart. But what I like about them is that they are very customizable. You can choose the receiver that you put into the goggle. I have a TBS Fusion in it. There's a few others that are out there that you can choose from. They're more or less all, I would say, pretty fine. You'll be okay. TBS Fusion's my choice, and it's very easy to use. This is what you actually choose the channels with, and it's just stupid simple. It has two SMA ports on the front. I have a TBS, this is a Triumph Pro, and it just screws right in. Very easy. I've got a Mad Mushroom here, and they're both omnidirectional antennas, and pretty standard, honestly. I have a tall one, so that goes above my head as much as possible, because I have all this water in here. It will break up the signal. So you have a tall antenna, and then you have one sticking out, and it kind of gets in this direction, the signal. I will occasionally swap this out for a patch antenna. And think of this as like a Superman punch. If you were flying directly in front of you, flying out like a parking garage or something, you might want to switch to a patch. And what this is going to give you, if I can get this on, is you're gonna get a punch right through a wall basically with this. Basically the front, on the back, we've got foam. Now you can customize, you can get whatever foam you need, and it's very, I don't want to pull it apart because mine's falling apart, but it's all Velcro, and you can just replace this foam for like $9. So you just get a new cut of foam, and you can actually customize you could add these little wedges onto it and get the fit to where you really need it to be. It has really good optics in it. These are OLEDs, and they have individual diopters, and you can actually like focus each one to exactly what you need them to be. And I would say the screen quality is excellent. And then here in the center, we've got our DVR micro SD card slot where we can actually record the video from these directly onto a card. So I think that's pretty sweet. Almost every goggle these days has that feature, so it's nothing special. Then we've got a Ethics strap. You can change the straps on these to whatever you want. And then I've got my battery just dangling here. It's a 4000 milliamp Thunder Power that I think I need to replace because it's like 4 years old. This setup is quite old. So I think the most recent thing that I've ever bought for it was a new antenna because I broke the inside of it. But I haven't bought any of this gear since the Fusion came out. And if you were to Google that, if I had to guess, it came out in like 2021. So like this has lasted me a very long time without spending more money. The goggle itself is still about $500. And we're talking about probably another $120 for the receiver. And then probably about $30. And then I would say the other antenna is about $20. And then the goggle battery is probably maybe like another $30-40. So all in, you're about 700 deep, which sounds like a lot. But again, if this setup's going to last you for like 5 or 6 years, then that's like $100 a year or a little more than that. My use case, why I actually fly this instead of DJI, is really about the latency. I find that still with DJI, as good as it's getting, and it's getting a lot better, I think they're going to have some new stuff coming out where it really is going to put it to the test. But there is still a perceived latency that I feel with it. and it just doesn't feel the same. It's like wearing a different set of gloves that you're used to for like if you drive with gloves on or something like that. Like it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't fit me to what I like when I'm flying freestyle. Now, does that mean that I don't use it at all? No, there's definitely a time and a place for DJI. I have all the setup, I have all the gear. I just always gravitate to this for freestyle. I also like that it's relatively cost effective. Now, I know we're talking about this being $700-ish, but when you actually look at the camera gear that goes on the quad, which is the stuff that you're actually going to break regularly, you can pick up an FPV camera for like $23. You can get a VTX for about, I would say, between 30 and 40 bucks. And honestly, if you look closely, you can get it even cheaper. I'm just going with what I actually fly. Is I believe the camera is like $23, and I know the VTX is $39.99. So each time it's like a $70 setup. It's not that bad, and you can replace individual parts on them. So just because you smash the camera doesn't mean you're destroying the VTX as well. I like that because I'm crashing constantly because I'm just trying to get as good as I possibly can. And part of that means that I'm making my moves at the last possible second just to see if I could get it. It's just a consideration if you're trying to get really good at the hobby. Then you might want to consider something like this, because when you're buying new DJI Air units or HD0 camera setups and you're spending $130 to $230 for the setup, now, yes, you can absolutely fix those things and you can diagnose things and whatnot, but right off the bat, I know that this is more cost effective for my use case. I like this also because it works well with whoops. If you're flying a tiny whoop, they still need an analog goggle, and I just use this with everything. They also have box goggles that start at about, I'd say, between $100 and $150, and they are more than enough if you're flying a tiny whoop, no matter what you get. Next up, let's talk about DJI. Now, they are in a transitory period because they're coming out with the O4 Air unit and their next gen video system, which has already been out for like 6 months because it's in the Avata 2, and currently the O4, I believe, is going through FCC approval. So we're kind of like in this transitory period where there's no good answers to this stuff. But I'm still going to make the video because I want to help you guys understand it as best as I can. Up until recently, they've had the O3 Air unit, which is what you would actually install on a quadcopter. The O3 costs, I believe, as of now, it's like $230. So we'll have to see what the O4 actually costs in the end. But that's one of my big bugaboos about the system, is because it's so expensive just to replace it on the drone. If you're crashing and you're just getting started and you're busting stuff like crazy, like I did at the beginning, $230 each time can add up very quickly. So it's just something to consider when you're weighing your options. DJI has come up with these thinner profile goggles, and they've had 4 or 5 editions in the last 2 years. So there was the goggles 2, the goggles Integra, now we got the goggles 3, and now we have the goggles NE, I believe they're called. Are all more or less the same. I have not owned them all, so I can't speak to that. I know that there has been differences in the optics. I know that there's been a difference in this stupid forehead thing that the goggles 3 has, and have these kind of just dingle dangle off your face, and then you have to adjust it in. I'm not the biggest fan of these, but this is what came with the Avata 2. Can work with the O3 system, and they will be working with the O4 Air unit when it comes out. And I'm saying that with confidence, even though it's not out yet, because it currently uses the O4 system with the Avata 2, which I've got right here. So 04 in this is 04. I can't imagine that they wouldn't allow you to use this with the new air unit. The newer version of this is the NE, and I think it's actually quite interesting. I've not gotten a set yet, but if you were to just buy these goggles on their own, it's $500 for this. So you think about that. It's $500 plus $230 for the 03 air unit. You're already about $730 in. We're talking about the same cost as going all in on analog. But then if you're going to be crashing a lot, your replacement costs go way high. The newer NE goggle is very interesting because I would say it's more of like a box goggle. It's about twice the size of this, apparently. And the optics in it are a lot simpler. I believe it's just like a 1080 screen, and then it's like reflecting it in here. So you don't even need to have these fancy optics in it. And I believe you can even wear glasses with those new goggles. And the best part about those goggles is I believe you can pick them up for like 150 bucks. 500 for these. If I was a gambling man, I would say I'd probably gamble with the newer set and give that a whirl. I've watched a couple of review videos on it, and people seem to be really happy with those goggles. And it almost seems like they go back to what the V2s used to be, which is exactly that, like simple optics, and people were able to wear glasses with these, and that was like a really big draw. We've got other systems that I don't have, so I can't really speak to them, but there is HD0, and there's Walksnail Avatar System. The Walksnail Avatar System is made by Fat Shark now, or whatever their situation is. I would say that it's similar to DJI. It has a lot of similarities in general. I believe the menu system is very close. I believe the way that it handles the video feed is very similar as well. I don't have much to say about it. I've tried it once and it was fine, but I can't speak to the durability of the camera or the VTX or any of that stuff. More or less same goes for HD0. I've tried them about once, and I thought that they were actually really great because I could not perceive any of the latency. The goggles that I flew with, they looked like these on steroids. The feed felt really good. It felt like analog, but I can't speak to the camera durability or the VTX durability. And from what I've heard, it's not as good as what an analog setup is in terms of that. So for me personally, it doesn't really make sense to upgrade because I'd be spending another $500 on a new set of goggles plus $130 for the camera setups spread across multiple drones. So we're talking about like $1,000 or more just to switch and no perceivable advantage. So that's why I'm still here. If you're flying less freestyle stuff and you're just trying to get pretty cinematic footage, then I would definitely use this instead. You're going to get a much clearer picture, and it's a really good video signal on the 04 system. Just with the Avata alone and flying this over the woods, which I'll pop some footage in there, this did not break up at all. I had a really good experience with it, and the video is just absolutely gorgeous. So if you're doing long range stuff, if you're doing anything that wants to be very pretty, then DJI is probably the way you're going to want to go. I would definitely check out those NE goggles, if anything, and I would sit tight because the 04s, it's going to drop pretty soon. So there's no right answer for any of this stuff. It just depends on what kind of flying you want to do. Like I said, I would say most pilots these days are not starting with this. They're diving right in to this right here. This is going to be the easiest on-ramp. However, I think there are a couple key drawbacks that I outlined already. All right, so I hope you guys found that interesting and helpful. Please drop a comment down below. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know what I could do better. And I'll catch you in the next video in the series very soon.
Woo!